the story of the plight of homelessness here in the Valley. But we've had tons of discussions about it. The Zone maybe being the biggest one, that huge encampment in downtown Phoenix. And I've struggled with this. I don't even know if I have an evolving position on it, because I find it very difficult to come up with a consistent position, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It appears to me that when we, the city of Phoenix, eliminated the Zone and ran everybody out, my smart alecky answer is, well, none of them, they weren't any less homeless when you ran them away. They're just homeless somewhere else now. So it's like you smacked the beehive and the bees went in every direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now you've got smaller encampments of homeless people. You just have them in different areas. I don't know if that's an improvement on the situation.
So one of the depressing things about it, I mean, the more depressing thing is that we have so many people who are homeless.
Sure.
But in the sense of public policy, this has been, and maybe I'm coming up short here, at least a decade.
Oh.
This has been a major priority. Mm-hmm. Like we have people, Republicans, Democrats, saying, hey, listen, we need to clean up our streets and also help people who are addicts.
Sure.
Get them someplace
Mental
to
illness.
live. Exactly. And I think that's what's so disconcerting, is that this has not been a problem that's been ignored. It's been something that's gotten some focus, and I don't know if the ideas aren't good, if money's being thrown at it, or in some cases you have folks who are experiencing homelessness who are, not necessarily up for the help.
Resistant to help.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not sure how all that works
Fair.
together, but it makes for.
Well, it's interesting because it's made its way to the Supreme Court. And today, the Supreme Court heard arguments on a case, and this is coming out of Grants Pass, Oregon. Because in Grants Pass, I've been to Grants Pass, Oregon. It's not a very big place. In Grants Pass, Oregon, they have criminalized camping in city grounds. In other words, being homeless.
Yeah.
You cannot live in a sleeping bag, a tent. They have criminalized it. With the argument is, can you criminalize homelessness when you don't offer a bed, a shelter? Because the argument being, what would you like them to do? How would you like them to be less homeless? And it's a solid, there's the conundrum, right?
Yeah.
And so here's the moral question. Is it worse to ignore the homeless and leave them in their plight? Or is it worse to arrest them and make criminals out of them and shoo them away from living, with the incentive being that they're going to straighten their lives out?
Well, I presume we don't want to get too deep into the system, because neither one of us has anywhere close to an answer to this, that if a person is homeless by virtue of bad luck, as opposed to choices that they
lost their job type thing we've heard about.
There are things that have happened over the years. So we have to also think about this, Bruce. Why do we, forgive me for this is kind of ridiculous. Why do we have homeless in the first place? Mm-hmm. We could kind of get into a socialism versus capitalism discussion, which I don't think either one of us wants. But that's the question too. Do you criminalize activity when people perhaps don't have opportunities? We live in a society where it helps to be able to inherit things,
sure,
whether land or money. And some people don't have that opportunity. So you might end up with people who are just homeless. And so do we treat them as if they're rats on the street?
Pariahs.
Well, yeah, but even worse. Like they're almost like, we all see people with
caste system we're going to in India.
Exactly.
They're the untouchables.
Yeah. It feels that way sometimes. So, but not to make it too, but based on
I get where you're going.
But based on what you're saying, it makes sense to try to figure out more solutions. But okay, what's the old NIMBY acronym? Not in my backyard. Yeah. So I think we're seeing that too. We saw that in Scottsdale, right? With the one along Pima Road, where there was going to be this hotel converted, maybe it was already converted into, and then when people found out and lawmakers, oh my,
right.
Well, what are you offering as an alternative?
Well, weren't they going to build one out on Buckeye or something? And they screamed about it. I go, if you can't build it in Buckeye, where else you can? I apologize to everybody in Buckeye. I don't really.
It's 97 degrees in Buckeye,
yeah,
by the way.
I don't want to tell them that. But it was interesting. And again, the Supreme Court, the justices were asking questions. And here's an interesting one. Justice Kagan, sleeping is a biological necessity. And for a homeless person who has no place to go, sleeping in public in kind is kind of like breathing in public. Like her argument to the making these things is, you're fine with them being homeless. They just can't fall asleep. Which is, I mean, that's the argument, right? Being homeless is fine.
Yeah.
But if the sun goes down and you lie down in the park, we got to draw the line.
Well, are we going to have next that we're going to have like hours when we have park is closed from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Homeless can sleep there between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., but then get out.
Right. I don't know what the solution. I admit it.
Yeah.
But that's why, again, I look at it like an evolving thing. But this Supreme Court case, depending on how it's decided, could have ramifications on how we deal with homeless here. And you could see that if they rule in favor of the government in this instead of Grants Pass, Oregon, it would be illegal to cite homeless people unless you had an alternative place for them to live. You wouldn't be able to kick them out of the park or break up their tent or their camp on the side of the freeway, whatever, unless there was an accompanying bed for them somewhere else. But it's crazy to think of because I look at it like this. Okay, so let's say Phoenix builds the place, pisses off the neighbors there. Builds a place in Buckeye, pisses off the neighbors there, right? If you build, is it like if you build it, they will come? If you build enough places for homeless to live, will more show up because of like, hey, Phoenix is handing out beds? Like, I don't know.
Well, and as we know, it is a better place to be. I mean, Phoenix, as we've talked about earlier in the program, and we will talk about with the heat.
Heat's an issue, right?
But it's sunny most of the time.
Yeah.
As long as you can find some shade, it's not like living in a place where it snows all the time.
Well, that's why, I spent a lot of time in California also, and Santa Monica and the beach and Venice and stuff. It's almost overrun with the homeless. I don't know any other way to describe it. I have a certain measure of sympathy for it, but I also understand the public nuisance issue that goes along with it. But I can also understand it's probably a heck of a lot easier to be homeless in Venice than it is to be homeless in Fargo. I mean, I got to believe like your worst weather day in Santa Monica is better than anything they got in Fargo, North Dakota.
100%, yes.
Any day of the year. Pick any day of the year that you want. So they tend to go to areas that it is easier to live in. So is that burden on only those communities?
I come back to just how much investment there has been. I mean, San Francisco is obviously the poster child for that. And it's made it feel like San Francisco is an unlivable place, which we both know it is livable, except a lot of mistakes have been made. So when we try to criminalize human beings, Bruce, that are not necessarily doing anything wrong, wow, that's a rough turn. Well,
I really like that, and I never thought of it this way. And again, credit to Justice Kagan for the question, but I'm going to paraphrase it. It's okay to be homeless. It's not okay to be homeless and go to sleep.
Right.
That's basically the argument. And that's a hard argument, I think, for some places to defend. Might be a good way to put it.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gatos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.